Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Beginner to Expert, and this is part 9, continuation of Angular directive. So in this tutorial I will show the structural directive of the Angular. In my previous video I discussed with the attribute based directive. So for structural directive only I will means I'm going to take an example for to create one simple slider, the directives folder, and inside that I'm going to create ngd, then simple slider. It has been created. Now I have to check the app module whether it is declared or not. Okay, here it is also declared. Now this okay, so this selector I'm going to change, like I'm wants to put some shortest name of the selector, like ss means simple slider. Okay, now next step will be like I have to create one private method which will be like slider context, and which will be type slider context. Okay, so this slider context nothing but an interface, and this is for the time being I already created this context, and this context actually resides under the configs folder. So this is one kind of interface. Here one property have been used, that is dollar implicit, and you can find it out in Google. So actually basically this dollar implicit actually inbuilt, you can say, property of the Angular, where we can assign a default value, and we can provide to the DOM. So that's why I have been used the dollar implicit property, and which will be a string here. So and here I took one object, that is object name is like controller, and here I kept two method name, that is next and previous, and each of the method is having a type of function. So this is basically a arrow function, and here by default it is returning a void. So this all about the this interface slider context. So here I'm going to use this method, means this property, which will be type of slider context or null, and I'm assigning one value like null by default. Okay, now I'm going to create one more in property private, that is called index, and which will be like number, and by default would be like 0. Okay, now next step I need to implement on init in lifecycle hook. So I'm going to implement, I want to assign some value to the slider context. So okay, so before that I will take one input of the input. So name would be like the selector name and from, and here I will talk about the from this word in just a bit later. Okay, now I I'm giving one alias like images, and which will be type of array of string, and by default value would be like empty string. Okay, now here I want to initialize some value to the slider context. So as slider context, we know this is one kind of object. So this interface. So here dollar implicit, that interface is having the property dollar implicit. Here we can assign the default value which will provide to the DOM. So default value, so when page will load, means view will be rendered, that time I want default one image to be there in the slider. So that's why here I'm going to take the 0 index, and next is the controller. So if you hover the mouse, the controller is nothing but an object. So I'm going to assign, if you press the control spacebar, then it will show you the intelligence, what are the properties is there inside the controller. So here I'm going to use the next, and if you hover the mouse on the next, see, you can check the next is type of the arrow function. So here I am also going to assign one arrow function, and here I'm going to declare one public method next, and similarly I will use another method, let's say prev, means previous. So here I am calling this my local method, that is next, and another is the previous. So this dot prev. Okay, so I'm assigning this to the context. Now next step so will be to inject the template reference and the view reference, so view container reference. So here I'm going to use the private underscores, let's say t reference, template reference, template reference, and you can check auto import from Angular code. That means this class is the Angular core part. This is an one kind of generic class where we can pass our type. So here slider context we are passing. Next step, to inject the view container reference, which will help us to create the embedded view in the DOM. So here we see view container reference, and if you hover the mouse you can get the information about the view container reference. So now I have assigned some value to the slider context. Now my next step is to create the embedded view, so that is present inside this instance. So create embedded view. So here we can pass the template reference first parameter. So here this dot template reference, and next we can pass the context. So here instantiates an embedded view and inserts it into this container, means as we are using a directive, so this directive actually we want to provide some information or some data to that directive in the DOM. So that's why we have created the context. Context nothing but your class, or it can be a interface. So here I will pass this dot slider context. Okay, now it will create the view. Okay, now the next method I will write some logic inside the next and previous. Now I will go to the HTML here for the time being. Okay, I will remove, I will show you from the scratch. So here I will use one div, and my directive name I have given ss as a selector, as we are creating a structural directive. So mind that how do you get to know, or how do we get to know this directive is a structural directive? Yes, as we are using the template reference and the view container reference. So this view container reference actually help us to create the embedded view. Embedded view means the structural directive. So as we are saying it is a structural directive, so we can use the star, then ss, as we use the star ng4. So the star ng4, that is also a structural directive, and this way only that is developed. So here I will use as like star ng4. So then here let image from, let's say, image. Okay, for the time being I have created one constant file, so I consider one public property, that is slider image list, and this slider image list actually contains the list of images. So I, for the time being, I have been created this constant file, and this constant file actually is having the image list. So here path and name, two properties I kept. Okay, now I'm going to the HTML part here. So here I have been used like star ng for that structural directive, the way we actually use, same way here also I'm going to use, but some difference is here of operator is here, but in our case from operator. So let image one image object, and from we are reading the list from here. So that's why I kept the name as from. You can put your customized name as well. So, and another is we are reading some object from the controller, and this controller is nothing but this controller property of the slider context. Okay, now I'm created two anchor tag, one for next and another for previous, and here I attached one click event, and this click event will call our one custom method, that is, so next and previous actually is having under the controller object. So here controller dot next and controller dot prev, and in between the two anchor tag I have been used main tag, inside that image tag. Save. I go to the browser here. Ah, so here what is happening? Okay, I removed the all debugger. Here you can check. By default I have been provided one image which is coming from the zero index of the image list. Here I will show you by using debugging. Control P, then search simple directive, and here ng on it, put a debugger and refresh the page. Now slider, if you open, the by default is null. Slider context by default is null because I initialized this slider context with the null value. Now if I press F10, then we are actually passing some value to this context. Here context controller property is having two method, next and previous, and which will be a function type, and here dollar implicit, that this property is actually inbuilt of the Angular, and which help us to provide some value to our directive in the DOM. And here actually first image, so we are reading the first image from this list, so that the zero index, and we are assigning. Now it will create one embedded view. So here, that means now if you inspect element of this, here I have been used one div, that div actually looping through. Here this div is actually looping through, and this is anchor tag, my two anchor tag, one main, one image. So the dollar implicit which I provided one image info, that image info actually nothing but this image. So you can check over here, it is not generated 3 div, because here image list is 3, and here actually star ss means it is actually looping through, but here it is not looping through, because we have been used the embedded view. That means view container reference, whatever image means is in the active state, that image view only will be created, other than other rest of the things will not be created. So Angular will manage by itself. So now my next target is, if I click the next, then next image will come from that list. So for that, okay, let me tell you one more thing here. As I said earlier, input name, two nomenclature is there. Like first one is my directive selector. Okay, now second one is actually you can say one keyword, or you can say an operator, because I have been used this operator or keyword here. I will write some coding means logic inside the next method. So here is my next. Okay, first I will increase the index. So this dot index plus plus. Now I will check that this dot index greater than equals to this dot images dot length. So why I'm checking this condition, because if I click the next, if it exceeds the length of the image list, then it will assign automatically the zero index. That means if I click now I'm in one image, then if I click next it will come to 2, then it will if you click again, then it will come 3, then if you click next, there can no more images is there, because I am having only 3 images in the list, so no more images will be there. Now if you click the next, then it will assign automatically the zero index. So that's why I'm checking this condition here, index equal to be 0. Now I will assign the next image, sorry, slider context dot dollar implicit. So here this dot images of this dot index. If I save the project, if I run, click next, then now you can say check the image is changing. Now I'm in 3. If I click next, then again the 0 index actually assigning here, and it is reading from the 0 index image. Okay, now I can write the same logic with some minor changes here. here, then this dot images dot length minus 1. Okay, now if I click here, if I click previous, again if I click previous, then it will come to the 3 again. That means, so this way we can create other structural directive also. So what is the benefit of the structural directive? So yes, structural directive give us the opportunity to freely use your view. I will write only code for the DOM in the backend. So this is the main flexibility of the structural directive. That's all for the day. Still, if you have any queries, please leave a message in the comment section below. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.